Catwalk. Thank you very much for catching us on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit that little notification bell and like and subscribe so that you won't miss a single episode. I have been wanting to tackle the topic of education for years now, and today we have two experts in the field, and we're really not even going to be able to get into everything tonight, but I'm hoping that we're going to be able to scratch the surface because I have so much respect for teachers and going into schools every day and teaching our youth, which we will get into. So I'm very proud to introduce Heidi Kaplan, who is on the cusp. Perhaps by the time this episode airs, she may have actually already retired from the Westchester School District. And recent retiree, as her shirt, I hope we're getting a close-up of the shirt, School's Out Forever, in case you can't see that. Jennifer Jo Moyer, you've seen her here before, friend to the show, and recent retiree after 32 years in the New York City public school system. Thank you very much, ladies, for being here today. So please, I'd like both of you, let's try to start as much at the beginning as we can. Did you both always want to be teachers?
When I was a little girl, if you asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, I said, I don't know what I'm going to be, but I'm not going to be a teacher.
And
mark my words, 38 years.
38?
Yeah, actually, 3 years as an assistant teacher and 4 years as a private school teacher, and then 25 years. Is that did I right?
Right.
Something horrible. 33 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
30 plus years, but
25 in New York City public school.
In New York public schools.
And 6, 7 before that in private school.
In private school. Heidi was...
I think my journey was kind of interesting. Probably growing up and all through school, I did want to be a teacher.
You did?
I did, even through high school. And as soon as I got to college, I said, that's it, no teaching. And I probably explored 5 or 6 different majors my first 2 years in college, and then somehow found myself back on the teaching path. But I think deep down inside I knew it was a calling for me.
I have to say, it has to be a calling, because you're not doing it for the fame, the glory, the glamour, the money, the glitz, the glam. There is none.
The summer vacation. That's what we're always accused of.
Right.
Everybody says, oh, the best thing about being a teacher is the summer. No.
Please debunk that myth. Please, let's put that to rest right now.
You need every ounce of that vacation to recharge and be able to go back and do it again.
So it's almost like that's saying you need a vacation from your vacation.
If you are doing it because of the time off, then you couldn't possibly do it. Because while you're in it, there's just so many more hours than there are in a day. So you're not doing it for the time off.
And I think the biggest myth is when people say it's a 9 to 3 job. It's so much more than that, because once you leave the building, you take everything home with you, and it's the practical stuff. It's the lesson planning. It's the interaction with the parents, and that really goes on for hours and hours, through weekends, through vacations. And I think recently, it used to be kind of, around 5 or 6 o'clock, things would wind down. But with the internet, everything keeps going. It's a 24-hour job. Emails, late at night.
I had a principal who would email at 4 o'clock in the morning.
And I have parents of students who email at 11:30 at night. And I have students who will send me emails at 10 o'clock at night saying that they don't understand something that they learned during the day. So it goes on forever.
So your email, I know this may sound crazy, all your students have access to you. So
I never had that because I taught in elementary school. So our
Okay.
kids didn't have school emails, and you didn't give the kids your email.
Okay, but the administration has access to you
administration, yeah.
24/7, and in your case, Heidi, your
It's
students.
the students and the parents as well. In fact, in the past, I would say 3 or 4 years, there are these internet platforms that we use where the learning itself can also be very interactive. So students will not only just have to sometimes bring homework to class the next day, they will have to submit it electronically. And sometimes the deadline would be 11 p.m. or midnight.
So teaching has really, so the internet has not necessarily didn't necessarily make your jobs easier, or is that true?
I think for me personally, I think in many ways the internet has complicated things in many, many ways. You know, one was that teachers had to learn with students. When students were learning all of the, you know, the computer access and ways to learn via the internet, you know, it was new for them, but the teachers were learning it at the same time. So we had to put in a lot of time doing technology training, and that never ends because it's a constantly evolving system. So as soon as one thing, you know, we get used to it, we use it, it works, something new and better has come out, and they've thrown out the old system. So, you know, even over
Yeah,
summers,
as
over
soon
vacations.
as I learned how to use the smart board, they gave me a Promethean board.
Exactly. Exactly.
To do with each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Total.
I don't know if you're familiar with smart boards.
I've heard of them, but I've never.
Well,
I'm so
first
old.
there
that
were chalkboards.
Yes, I
Then
remember
there
the
were
chalkboard.
whiteboards.
Yes, chalkboard
and
and
then they
whiteboard, I
became
know.
electronic.
Okay.
And the smart boards came
Okay.
after the whiteboards, and they had these things that looked like the whiteboard markers, but they were electronic, and you plugged your computer if you had one in your classroom, and that was the other thing.
And I got a new one this year. They came and they took the smart board out, and what I have now, it's this portable thing that looks like a widescreen TV, but it actually functions. It's a cross between a smart board and a giant iPhone. And that's
my.
actually kind of fun because it's a touch screen, so I can
Wow.
access anything on the internet on the screen, and I could take a pen and write over it. So, I mean, those things are fun, and I think in a lot of ways it has enhanced education.
So could the argument be made from listening to these new technological advances? Because I feel like many times people are screaming about more money in education and not enough budget and not enough, but it sounds like a lot of money is being, or is it a myth, or
But
does it
it's
just look
only
like that?
halfway because
Okay.
like they got these great boards in some of the schools, and the internet doesn't work consistently enough to make the lovely board work when you need it to work. So you have your whole lesson planned and ready to go, but suddenly the internet's out because the infrastructure, it was put in the 90s, and it can't carry the signals for as many classrooms and as many devices as are now hooked to it. I mean, when I first was in a school with Wi-Fi, with wireless internet, we didn't have computers that had wireless ports in them. So they wired the school for wireless, but they didn't upgrade us the computers. And there's like only 4 outlets in each classroom, and only 2 of them can take a power strip. You know, it's like,
Okay.
how?
Right,
How?
right.
You can't.
So many
it's half.
times the cart is being put before the horse, or it's just
Like
not.
you'll get the grant to buy the thing, but then you're not equipped to install the thing. So you got the money to do it, but then you can't plug it in.
I think the answer to
I mean, that's New York City. You know.
to your original question really is very dependent on where you teach.
Okay.
And for me, having had the opportunity to work in a very affluent, suburban public school district, probably the situation is a little bit different. One of the things that they are phasing in over a 3-year period, starting last year, this year, and next year, is that the school provides a personal iPad for every single student. So talking about money, well, I'm the math teacher, but I think anybody could do the math on that one.
Right.
To figure it out, because not only did they have to purchase the devices, but they had to add additional staff because they needed specialists to service the devices, and then they had to hire insurance companies because the kids would lose the devices and the parents had to purchase insurance. So thousands have been spent. And then I think where you get to next, I don't know if you want to even go there, but to really start weighing, is it a benefit or is it really a deterrence to education to infuse all this technology? So I think that's where the big question will be headed in the next 10 years.
Absolutely. No, we can absolutely talk about that. So do you feel, I can see you saying it's a double-edged sword. So do we feel that the technology is equipping students to function in this technologically advanced world, or is there something to be said for doing things? For instance, I know probably if I went to 5th grade tomorrow, I'm sure that I would be the biggest idiot I would not be smarter than a 4th grader. From what I hear, math isn't even, multiplication as I know it doesn't even exist anymore. We're not putting, 7, I wish I had a smart board right now, but we're not doing, 7 times 8 and then the way I know it. From what I understand, division and multiplication is not even how I learned it anymore.
That is true. And when I was teaching 3rd grade, my nephew had to teach me how to do the lattice multiplication board because I had he was like, no, Aunt Jen, it's just like this. Boom. And I'm like, but I could do it like this and boom yourself.
Right.
But he had to teach me what the heck this thing was so that I could teach it to my 3rd graders. Because I had never seen, because I taught pre-K most of my career, and then I would get stuck in a 3rd grade for a year, and then I'd go back to pre-K, and then I'd go to 5th grade, and then back to pre-K. And let me tell you, time travel does exist for teachers.
Okay.
There are always new trends, though, in everything, and I think education is a place where you really see that. So what I see has happened so many times over the many years that I'm teaching is something new and great will come out, and everybody will jump onto it, and there are many benefits, but then you reach the point of diminishing returns where you say, well, wait a minute, what are we losing for all that we're gaining? And I think that's what we're just starting to see. I think the research is just starting to come out now to point at, well, wait a minute, where is the technology going too far? And how is it hurting the kids and not helping them? I think we need the technology for all of the new jobs and everything that they will do. But as far as the learning is still about learning how to think. And I think that you need the human coaching with that. I think learning from a computer can only go so far. So.
Gotcha. Wow. So are there any other really notable points in how, because you both have seen tremendous trends and changes in the tenure of your career. What I seem to find, and I'm sure we could debate this, we could talk about this all night, but I feel like, and correct me and tweak what I'm saying if I'm wrong, I feel like the respect that, or the, for lack of a better word, fear that I had for my teachers growing up, from what I understand, is very different. And maybe that is, maybe what I'm speaking about is a societal issue. Maybe we could even go there. And it maybe isn't even a teacher classroom issue, but I'm sure you both have experienced it in the classroom. And I'm sure this comes from parents and from, I remember back in my day, if we if we even saw a teacher out, like, because of course, you're never supposed to see you, right.
Teachers don't
God
leave the
forbid we saw
school.
you in a movie theater, in church, in the supermarket, in a grocery store, in the bank, wherever.
Yeah.
It was such a shock, because we had this clear-cut version of you being behind the desk or in front of the chalkboard or in the classroom. And I know I'm digressing, but I think it just all goes back to a certain esteem and a certain place that teachers held in kids' lives. And from what you read and from what you see, teachers seem to be dealing with much different issues now that I don't think have anything to do with education from parents and students. So sorry, please give me your thoughts on that.
I can start on that. And again, I think this is really dependent on where the teacher teaches.
Okay.
I think everywhere, I don't think teachers are held with the respect that they were when we were growing up. It might be a different experience, it might be different reasons, it might be a different situation. I think that my experience is that over the years, the way it's evolved is that the teachers are not given the, I don't want to say the personal respect, because for me, the kids still, do show some respect, but in terms of the decision making, in terms of the results, in terms of the students saying, oh, well, whatever the teacher says goes, I think there's so much more, just to kind of summarize where I'm coming from, there's so much more challenging of the teacher's decisions now in so many ways.
Right.
Whether it's to be disrespectful to the teachers in some places, or for the parents to say, well, I don't think the way the teacher is teaching this is correct. I would teach it differently. And I have to deal with that.
I can't imagine a parent saying that. I
Yeah.
can't imagine saying that to a teacher.
Yes.
I can't imagine.
And Jennifer's laughing, but
I was having a moment about the school safety calling up to my classroom before parent-teacher conferences and said, Asia Lee's mother's on her way up there and you better hide. Because she's up there going to kill you. That's what the
flashbacks.
That's what the school safety called my classroom and said, Asia Lee's mother is on her way up there. You better hide. She's on her way to kill you. For parent-teacher conferences. How, the parents down there telling the school safety officer, I'm going up there, I'm going to kill that Moyer.
my.
And the school safety calls my classroom, doesn't stop the woman from coming up, doesn't come up with her, just calls me and says,
and warns you.
She's on your way to kill you.
Right, so arm yourself. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of arming yourself, what are your thoughts, both of your thoughts, on this whole arming of teachers with guns? That's happening, isn't it?
No, it's not happening.
It's not happening?
Oh, it's not. Oh, they're talking about it, but no, it's not happening.
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
I thought it was happening in some schools, or training, or some
well,
kind of...
we have things like lockdown drills. We've had in my school district.
I've had an open shooter on my school grounds.
Have you?
Yeah.
Wow.
When I taught in Harlem.
Wow.
We had an active shooter on the
We've
school grounds.
had to have mandatory training with the police department, where they will come in and do mock lockdown drills. We have to do practice lockdown drills with the students. And now there's a lot of talk going on whether or not that's beneficial, because the anxiety that it provokes among the kids is really, really sad to see. I mean, we had a lockdown drill last year in my school that was a result of a malfunctioning PA system in the school. So the PA system, which is trained to call a lockdown, called a lockdown. It wasn't planned. Nobody knew if it was real. We were in the room in the dark with the kids for 2.5 hours. Oh. And some of the kids were really very, very anxious, freaking out, and it was not a great experience. Whether that would help to prepare us for something real, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I had a little girl
Interesting.
from Yemen in my class, and she really didn't speak a lot of English. And they just moved to the States. She had been here. She had been born here. They had moved back to Yemen, and they came back to the States. But she had been through some horrible experiences over there. And then we had a lockdown drill, and she was crying hysterically. 5th grader, crying hysterically. Because we didn't know. We couldn't explain to her. She didn't understand that it was a drill.
Right.
And
It was very frightening.
and she'd had shooting in her life, so.
Right. Right.
How have both of you dealt with the baggage that kids unfortunately seem to bring to the class, that I'm sure they bring to the classroom as a result of home issues? Or do you? Or how and if and
I guess that depends on the grades. You
I
have
think
older
it depends
kids.
on the grades.
So
I've taught, middle school and high school.
so maybe you have a little less
Probably a little
than
bit less
in
than.
elementary. And in I taught pre-K, like I said, for more than half my career, or close to half my career. So these people are giving you their babies every day, and so you're raising them more than the parents are a lot of the times. So,
Wow.
but then you get to the schools that I taught in, a lot of homelessness, a lot of kids in shelters, a lot of kids living with grandparents because their parents are in jail or deceased, and foster care. And so you lose the kid in the middle of the year because the foster family changed, or the parents came back, the parents went out, whatever, moved from shelter to shelter.
have you seen parents change when you started your teaching careers? Have you seen the attitude or the wherewithal of your students' parents changing in the and can you attribute that to something? Are we just expecting? Is the bottom line that we're just expecting more of our teachers these days now than we were 20 years ago?
I think for me, 20 years ago, the parents came in with more of an attitude. Teachers are trained to be teachers. They're going to make decisions of what's best for my child. And the evolution that I've seen is parents think that they know what's best for their child, and they don't trust the teacher's decisions as much. And that's a frustration that I face every day. So
I faced a lot of reverse prejudice in my classrooms. That white teacher is going to pick on my kid because that white teacher is going to have
Have an issue.
have preconceived notions when they're the ones coming to me with the preconceived notion that I'm going to have.
That you're going to have a preconceived notion. Right.
And
but just like a pendulum for me, swinging back and forth, I think there's a lot out there now where the experts are saying, you'll read about the tiger parents and the helicopter parents. And hopefully that will trickle down and the parents will realize, well, wait a minute, this might not be in the best interest of the child. So the authority might move back to the teacher, or might move back to, let my child fall and have to get up again, rather than just, protecting them and preventing anything, from. For example, the parents are very afraid, well, what if my child fails a test? Well, you know what? Failing a test is great, because then you learn how to be resilient. So I think they're catching up with learning that that's important. I hope.
Speaking of failing a test, it seems to me, and judging from my friends who are parents and who have kids, there's a tremendous amount of pressure. I keep, I'm sure everyone wants to be 27 years old again, but I'm very happy that I went to school when I did. I feel like the pressures on students to compete, to succeed, to do well is much greater now than it was years ago.
I think that has stemmed so much from this infusion of the standardized testing.
Okay.
And I think the standardized testing was probably the worst thing that could have happened in our school systems from so many points of view. I think it put pressure on the kids. I think the parents then got, in some ways, you know, too involved with this race to the top kind of thing. It took autonomy away from teachers. Teachers ended up teaching to a test, and I think the kids suffered because they didn't learn as much. They suffered because they didn't learn the creativity, they didn't learn the resilience, you know, all of the things that got sucked out of education because of the standardized testing. And I think it's also, at this point, they're starting to realize, wait a minute, we made a mistake with that. They're going to start pushing it back.
Really?
I
Okay.
hope so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of friends with kids who talk about this standardized testing. I'm like, I don't remember taking all
But
these.
I remember taking them. I remember so clearly taking
Yes,
them
but
in
they
third
didn't
and fourth
count as
grade.
much.
Yeah, I guess it didn't count for much, but I just remember Mrs. Emerson being like, and this year you can have a book on your table, and I can tell you how long you're going to, you know,
Yeah.
like the same problems that we're having now, time testing, books, no books, whatever. I remember as a kid,
You know,
but
I-
only once a year, and like you said, it didn't have the weight that, you know, the teachers were like, oh God, here we go again.
While we're on the standardized testing also, you know, I think we have to talk about the content of the tests. And, you know, this whole push with the Common Core curriculums in the past few years. There is so much that is irrelevant in terms of the Common Core and the curriculum, and the fact that the curriculum is designed by people who were never teachers. And I think that's something
That
that
also
it really
has a big bias against inner city
Yes,
kids because
yes.
a lot of questions
As well.
reflect nothing that these kids have ever experienced.
Yeah, there are a lot of
experienced.
flaws with the whole standardized
Okay.
testing system. I don't think anybody was happy with it.
Even those stupid maps that they always have
Oh,
to
yeah.
look at, and it's like the school and the church and the grocery store and the park, and it's just like, really?
Wow.
And all the little houses. No, we don't live like that.
This has been incredible, and the time has once again flown by, and we have we've barely scratched the surface. So we have to have you back. Thank you very much, Heidi. Thank you very much, Jennifer, Joe, for sharing a little bit. We've just touched the surface, so we're definitely going to have you back so we can continue this further.
The ugly tip of the iceberg.
The ugly tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
but we're going to get more. Congratulations on your retirement,
Thank you.
and congratulations almost on you're right there.
Because
You see the
Heidi and I will be
finish
wearing
line.
matching shirts.
You'll be wearing matching
Next
shirts
time we
when you
come back.
Thank you very much for watching us on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe so that you won't miss a single episode. Until next time, thanks for watching.